We have hellos from Croatia, from Cincinnati, Ohio. We have Simona from Italy, Papia from India. We have Kenneth who says hello from Alabama. We have hellos from Central Florida, from Carol. And we have people from Italy, from Iceland, from Oxford, the UK, from France, from Slovenska, from Madrid, and hellos from Sweden, and from Washington, and Lahore, Pakistan, France, Georgia. Wonderful to hear and wonderful to be here with all of you. Warmest welcome and thank you so much for your wonderful hellos. And thank you so much for joining us today, Terrilynn.
Hello, thank you so much. That's exciting. I love the international aspect of Artefacto and that we can get together with people all over the world. I really believe artists should rule the world.
Yeah, it's wonderful to, and also to focus and just connect. And everyone who is here is here for the same reason and for the same purpose. And today let's dive in. We will be exploring watercolor step-by-step guide for predictable results. What can we look forward to today? And while we are talking, everyone, you can write where you're from and how long you have been painting with watercolor. Please share where you are on your watercolor journey in the chat. We would love to hear that. And while you share that, I'm going to ask you, Terrilynn, could you give a brief overview of what the focus is of today's workshop?
Today, we're just introducing the course. It's going to be a great course. There's a number of modules in the course that go from absolute basics all the way through finishing some paintings that have to do with seashore and rocks and water. I'm originally from Maine, which is in the northeast of the United States on the coast. So I've grown up with that. My mother was also a watercolor painter and instructor, and that's all she did was watercolor on the coast. So I'll also do a quick little demo that you can paint along with me. So I hope some people do that.
Okay, so we're going to take it from the beginning, learn lots of techniques and different tips and tricks, and we will also paint together. And I'm just going to read the chat a bit because I know that there will be some interesting comments here. We have Anna Örtenblad. It looks like a Swedish name. I'm not sure if it is. Who says that I'm a beginner. We have Rachel, sorry, Rachel from the UK, who started with watercolor about a year ago. We have Mario who's been painting for 2 years. And we have Monica who's been painting for 2 months. Welcome here. That's perfect. We have Leslie who's also been painting for 2 years. And Ludwig has been painting on and off for 1 year. And Liliana has been painting things since 2016. Yasmin has been painting for 4 or 5 years. And Dawn says, I'm a complete watercolor newbie, usually painting oils. This is going to be a bit of a
switch.
Switch, yeah, exactly.
Switch, yes.
Hi, Tostoyanka. We have Kenneth who says, a lifetime. Wonderful, wonderful. And Maria has been painting for 5 years. And we have someone who's been painting, Pam, for 9 months, a few months. So everything from completely newbie to painting for a couple of months to painting for several years. And I'm sure there are people, yes, I was looking for that high, painting for 20 years. I was like, I'm looking for someone who's been painting for decades because there's always someone who is still curious, which is wonderful and super impressive. We can always learn more. And if this is your first time with us, if you feel like, oh, I really want to paint along with Terrilynn, you can do that, but it might be a bit hard to stay in the same pace as Terrilynn is painting. So be prepared that you might want to just watch and observe and take notes. You can always watch the recording that you will have access to for a couple of days. You can do this again afterwards. So feel free to just explore and have fun and maybe get that wonderful result at a later date or a later time. And you can still join the workshop in premium plan, which means that you will have lifetime access to this workshop, this button to join that version of this workshop so that you get lifetime access will pop up below this video. So you can just scroll down and click that button. And today we are gonna both have a theoretic part where we will discover essential watercolor tools and learn about paper wetness stages, color behavior, quick texture techniques like salt and spray. And later on today, we will practice and begin to paint a seascape with waves and rocks where we apply Terrilyn's techniques that we have discovered early in the workshop so that you can begin to understand how to put this all together. We will also be presenting a brand new course that Terrilynn has created for everyone who wants a step-by-step approach that takes you on a journey of becoming more confident and free in your watercolor painting. And at the very end, we have a Q&A session. So if your question hasn't been answered along throughout the workshop, you can always ask your question there. So for those of you who are new to Artefacto, let me just welcome you and introduce you to what Artefacto is all about. It is an online learning platform that connects world-renowned artists with passionate students and artists of all levels across the globe. And we have over 300 courses and products featuring world-renowned artists. We have over 40 top artists sharing their experience and their expertise. There's an international community that's really big by now. And the platform has 24/7 access, so you can watch the videos whenever you like. And we have beginner to advanced levels that are guiding you step by step. And we also have practice-oriented techniques and some gamification so that you can get inspired to really continue working on your development and unlock your talent. And there's also a wonderful, beautiful community that offer feedback, creative advice, and endless support and inspiration. My name is Hanna Gram, and I have attended several Artefacto workshops, very many workshops by now, but also several courses. And it's so wonderful to connect with the artists that you feel drawn to, so you can learn the things that you want to have in your toolbox and just, grow as an artist. I think it's wonderful. And today, our instructor is wonderful Terrilynn Dubreuil, who has a degree in fine arts, and she has studied a wide-ranging situations and different techniques, different styles. We're going to talk a bit about her journey. And she has also been teaching various media and different art techniques for all ages, to all ages, for 35 years, both in person and also virtually. And she's a master pastelist with the International Association of Pastel Societies. She's a juried signature member of the Pastel Society of America, signature member of Pastel Society of Maine, and she has also been awarded, among other things, first place in the international, help me, Terrilynn, IAPS stands for
International Association of Pastel Societies. So it includes all the societies around the world.
Thank you. And you've been exhibiting and selling your artworks in different venues, receiving recognition at many juried international shows, and also getting awards. And I would love to hear, how did you start your journey as an artist, and what is it that has drawn you to the mediums that you have chosen? And also, what is it about watercolor that has made you return to it and keep that in your life as an artist and as a teacher?
You just want to know everything, don't you?
Please, in 5 sentences.
Yeah, right, in 5 sentences. Well, as I said, my mother was a watercolorist, but she didn't really start until I was about 12 years old. But I was always creating and painting up to that point. When I was at the university, I decided to major in art, took many different courses. I have kept painting all through my life. At first, I focused on oil, and then watercolor was my secondary, and then pastel. And when I found about certain aspects of pastel, it can be used as almost any other medium. It's the most versatile of mediums. But watercolor, I keep getting called back to, because it's one medium that you have to think differently than the other mediums. Almost all the others, you basically work medium and dark to light. But in watercolor, to keep that sparkling light, you need to retain a good amount of the paper sparkling through. So you work light to dark, and you layer it, and you have to think a lot more, and you have to really consider, what do I want to do? How do I want to get there? How am I going to mix colors to create the colors I want? And by mixing it with my other media, it becomes an oblique strategy. An oblique strategy is just something that kind of switches our thinking and creates new synapses in our brain to be more creative. So that's part of the reason why I like switching from one media to the next.
Ooh, it keeps you on high, on like awake. Yeah.
Yes. And as we age, it's good to keep our brains really active.
Ah,
Anytime in our life, it's important.
wonderful. And I can really sense the freshness that you love to keep the freshness and really use watercolor in a very fresh approach. We see that there is a directness here. They're not 10 very carefully laid layers. It's a very direct approach. Is that also part of how you teach, that you prepare in advance and then you go for it? Would you say that that is part of
Yes,
your technique and your approach?
exactly, Hannah. Thank you so much. Because for me, watercolor out of all the media is the one that wants to play with us the most. It wants to play back with us. Most of the media we really control, but watercolor, because of the wetness of the paper and things flowing around, we don't necessarily have total control. And I love that. I love playing with the water and the colors on the paper. I think it's going to do one thing, and the next thing I know, it's going over this way. And I have to adjust my thinking and keep on my toes and stay creative and play with the medium. It's so much fun. Like, you can see areas in some of these paintings where I just let the paint do what it wanted to do, exactly that area. And then other areas are very structured that I had total control. Yes, perfect. I like the looseness and the variability of watercolor.
Thank you so much for that introduction and
Yeah.
for just opening a window to your love for watercolor and the possibilities that this very unique medium provides. And now that we have introduced Terrilynn, I am curious who already knows Terrilynn and who has already learned from her at Artefacto or met her in a workshop or in a course. Please put a plus in the chat so we can say welcome back to all of you. And I'm just gonna take a quick look in the chat. We have lots of hellos. Sergio writes, those boats look amazing. And we have Monica writing a plus, and there will probably come several pluses in the chat in just a moment. Yes, Sabine says plus as well. And many of Artefacto students, namely, already know Terrilynn as their school curator and have had the pleasure of working with her already. And today we are excited to present the very first step-by-step online workshop and also the step-by-step first online course that Terrilynn has created specifically for those of you who are here today. And we've had wonderful feedback from her teaching. So we're super happy to have her here, continuing to share her expertise and her insights with all of us. We have Anna, Ferran, Rosalia, Celeste, Janice, Sofia, Francesca, who writes pluses, and Francesca also writes, she was an excellent curator. So happy to hear that, Francesca. Noreen says plus, plus, plus. Marianne says plus. We have Tanya who writes, love Terrilyn's ideas on artistry and creativity. Yes. Wonderful. Aline, Lubico, Adele, Yasmin, Kate, Suzanne, Swapna, Sharon. Welcome back, everyone. And if I've missed a few of you, which I see that I have, warmest welcome back to all of you, to those of you as well. And now, when we're beginning to get a bit warm and we're about to get started to learn from Terrilynn, please share in the chat, what results do you want to achieve today? What is something that you want to focus on and develop in your own watercolor painting? Please share that in the chat so that we set the stage as we continue. And here we have a quote from you, Terrilynn. At the workshop, we will receive many essentials that you may have missed along the way. These techniques are like those warm-ups a ballerina does before a performance. They should never be neglected. These fundamentals will help you become a better watercolor painter. And I am sure that you will add to that as we move on. Is there something you want to add to that already now?
Oh, no, it is so true. I mean, so many times artists get to a point where they've been painting a few years and they think, oh, I've got it, I'll just jump into my painting. I rarely do that. Sometimes I do it, but most of the time I design, I do sketches, I think, I plan, and we need to sit down, especially if I'm working in watercolor. I'll get a brush out and just do brush strokes for like an hour or so just to get the ease of working with a medium again. And every paper is different. Every paint is different. Your brushes are different. So it's good to get that warm up before we really start, not performing, but really jumping into the painting and enjoying what we're doing.
Thank you so much for that. It's very insightful, very valuable insights from you there. And today we also open a limited enrollment for Terrilynn Dubreuil's new course. And only those of you who are watching live will receive the best deal. So you will have an additional discount during this launch. So if you stay on the workshop and join the course while staying on the workshop, you will have a special discount for you. And now it is time to hand the word over to Terrilynn. And we're going to talk about the foundations, and you're going to teach us some things that we later will use during the practical part. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Terrilynn.
Okay. Yes, it's good. Even if we've been painting a while, sometimes as we go ahead in our painting walk or our journey, we miss some little things along the way. And I want to be able to fill in some of those aspects in this course, to go back, take a step back, pick up some of those things we may have skipped along the way, like what are the absolute basic materials that I might need? How much water do I need to mix? What paints do I use? And how do I create and mix them to get the colors that I want? Yeah, and then we get to practice it. I walk you through step by step. This is good. I take you through the absolute minimum. If you're very new in watercolor, please, my suggestion is don't go out and buy tons and tons of material and lots of paints and things. You can do a lot. And sometimes I work this myself with just 2 good brushes. I use a flat wash brush there and a round brush. And I've had these brushes for years. You take care of your watercolor brushes, they last for years. And then in my palette for color, I have very limited colors, a warm and cool of each. So a warm and a cool of red, yellow, and blue, and sometimes 1 or 2 earth tones like burnt sienna or raw umber. And I have recently discovered neutral tint, which is great because it can darken some of your colors if you need it without changing the hue. And the hue is just the pureness of the color. So we're going to go over those things in the modules. Get a next slide. What's up next? Oh, this is vital. I see so many people when I am curating on Artefacto and teaching in my classes, it looks like people really struggle with how wet is the paper. So I have a module that deals with that. And we work through, is it wet, so you can see it shining like gloss? Has it started to dry somewhat? So it's wet and there's some water on the surface. So I call that the sheen stage. The matte stage is when it's still damp. You can feel that it's still damp, but there's no shine on it. And then the dry stage, which is dry paper. And depending on the different techniques and effects you want to do, you need to understand these 4 steps, so these stages, for all your paintings. Again, being aware that every paper takes paint differently. I was working with a paper this morning that just sucked in the paint and was very soft. Today I'm working with one that's a little kind of in between, so I can get some sharp lines as well as soft blends. Here's hoping, because with watercolor, it's always it's a journey. I mean, you're taking almost a risk and hoping that it comes out well, because sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't come out as well as you want. If that happens, do another one. The more we paint, the more we do, the better it is. So become familiar with your, here's a perfect example. When we take two colors, and if we put them into that gloss stage where it's wet, wet, those paints are going to bleed and blend together beautifully like that. It's rich, it's flowing, it's totally out of our control. The next step is the sheen stage. So it's a little drier, but you can still see the water sitting on the surface of the paper. This way we get some of those blossoms, but they're a little more controlled. And this works great for flowers or trees in a distance or so many different things. But becoming familiar with it is what's going to help you really advance in your watercolor. The matte stage means that the paper is still damp, but you can't see any water on the surface. So it'll still bleed a little bit. You can get some areas that you can see it kind of feathers out away from the central area. And that's great techniques too. And of course, then dry is just when the paper is totally dry, you're going to get sharp, clean lines without any bleeding. So understanding these 4 stages is vital. What do we have next? Oh, yes. And I talked about simplifying your color palette. This is my big palette. I have a smaller palette with me today because it's hard for me to get the big palette and my painting medium for a demonstration in the camera. So learning all your different paints, it's good to try basics. I have some favorites that I suggest. You have student quality paints up to very high professional paints. I recommend you get a really decent quality, and because they're going to last you for years, and then play with it. Keep trying different strokes. Just take some old paper, scrap paper, your watercolor paper that didn't turn out so well, and just play it on top of it. How does this color flow? Depending on how much paint you have. How does it blend with others? What else works together with it? So those steps are going to help us, again, build a toolbox in a sense, a toolbox that you can reach into when you're doing a finished painting to say, oh, this is something I've already learned. I can use this. It's going to go great in this painting. If you have a variety of tools and all this knowledge, your paintings are going to expand and become better so much faster. Also, oh, D, how does it look when it's dry? Watercolor, generally speaking, tends to be dry about 1/3 lighter than when you initially put it down. B is, I'm sorry, I'm skipping around here. How does it flow? Is it transparent or opaque? I go over this in my modules. Some colors are transparent. You see through them. It's beautiful. It's like looking out a stained glass window. And some are more opaque, so they cover other colors and you can lay them on top of others. And how do those all interact with each? So what if I mix 2 transparent colors together? What happens? What if I mix a transparent with an opaque color? What happens then? And by playing, and we do color charts, I show you how to start a color chart, you're going to learn so much. All those little details that will really help you as you continue in your art journey. Brush techniques, yes, I go over some of the calligraphic brush techniques, or like the Chinese or Japanese brush techniques, the sumi way of painting. Those are important to know. I use tools like plastic wrap. Today, we're going to use, in my rocks, I'm going to use some plastic wrap. Just have some with you. I can also use things like old plastic cards, like credit cards or something. This is a great tool. I only have a few today, sometimes natural sponges, all sorts of things. And I always have a spray bottle. This one creates a rough spray, so it kind of just plops onto the paper. And this one is a very fine misty spray. So I always have these 2 nearby. And a toothbrush. This is a great tool. An old, hard toothbrush to make splatters. Anyway, I have all sorts of other tools. You can use things that are around the house. You can use brayers, little rollers. Those are some things that as the course goes on, later in the course, we play with some of these textures and you get some really great ideas. Hannah, you're back. Hi.
Yes. Sitting here behind the scenes, reading the chat and doing all
I
sorts of
know. Are there
uh,
any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you shared that these are essential foundational aspects of paintings. And what happens when we miss these foundations? And how do these foundations make make our lives as watercolor artists easier?
Easier. This is so true. Again, I kind of came up with this course because as I was curating, I found a lot of the watercolor students as doing great painting, and the wonderful instructors with Artefacto, excellent. But sometimes they're just missing some. So I find them getting a little frustrated in their journey in painting. And in their comments, they'll say, like, oh, I tried so hard, I didn't get this. And I'm thinking, well, I think it's because you don't understand this little aspect or that little aspect. So when we enter into courses that are advanced beginner or intermediate courses, we miss some of that very, very beginner. Some of the things that we need to understand, that knowledge that we need as a beginner to fill in those gaps. And that's what I'm hoping this course will do. And it's always good for even advanced painters to go back and review. And maybe every teacher knows something different. You might find something new yourself.
Or you need some inspiration to go back and do those ballerina exercises.
Exercises.
Yeah, because it's so easy to just want to paint the painting. Want to just jump straight to the result or going towards the result as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
And it can cause some frustrations for all of us.
Exactly. Thank you, Hannah. It's very well.
Ooh, thank you for really tailoring this course to the needs of the people that you've been working with. So we are really excited to introduce the course that Terrilynn has created to really solve these problems, where you really get to feel comfortable with all of the basics so that you can thrive and really grow and grow exponentially. So warmest welcome to our brand new course, Seashore Expedition in Watercolor. Here's the all in all that you get in this course. So there are 8 lessons to a total of 5 hours, 3 completed paintings and lots of exercises. And there's a 24/7 access to this material, and it's also lifetime access to this course. You can also choose to get individual feedback if you choose the elite plan. And we are gonna now have an overview of this course so that you know if it's for you and you know what you're gonna get if you choose to join us during this workshop. And in a few minutes, we will begin to paint together with Terrilynn so that you get to experience these things on your own, with your own brushes and on your own paper. This course is perfect for artists who want to master all of the basics of a watercolor painting and really feel comfortable with watercolor balance, color mixings, different techniques and textures, brushworks, and more. And also those who feel that there might be some gaps and they want to just feel more confident. And also for everyone who wants to enjoy the painting process and achieve beautiful, predictable results that still has that freshness and that play, that dance with a watercolor medium that Terrilynn really shares in her teaching. And also those who want to know what techniques to choose, how to regulate paper wetness, and make stunning watercolor effects. So let's take a look at what's inside. First, you will get to know Terrilynn and see how the learning process will be organized. And then you will dive into more depth than we have done today regarding the essential supplies and what you need to use those materials effectively and organize them in your working space. Is there anything that you want to add that you want to share additionally to this part, Terrilynn?
No, again, just start simple. You can see my palette there is a lot, or you can have a smaller palette, but start simpler and build from there as you need to. Don't try to jump to. Some people think that the next new supply they're going to buy is going to change their life. That's not it. What we need to do is the basics and really become familiar with how to work the paint and the paper.
Thank you for that. And then we really work on feeling and getting to know the different levels of wetness in the paper and just seeing the difference, trying out the difference, defining and regulating this paper wetness, and just trying this out in different exercises. Is there anything else that you want to add in this module that's important or something that we can learn already today?
But again, it's vital. And every paper, especially the paper, is going to make a big difference. I highly recommend using 100% rag paper. That's cotton rag paper. Other papers that have tree pulp in them just don't work as well with watercolor. The rag paper is a little more expensive, but that's one thing that is pretty important to have. But by becoming familiar with one type of paper that you're using for a long period of time, you become familiar to know how water and the paper work together. How fast does it dry? Is it dry in the house? Is it wintertime? You have the furnace on? Or are you outside painting in the summer and it's very humid? That also changes. So this is very vital, knowing when and how your paper and the water work together.
I think this is such an important aspect and something that can be very confusing when we're painting along with someone who might be painting on a different paper, in a different humidity, with a different amount of water, on a different size. There are so many things. So learning your own is really the key.
Yes, get familiar with one or two before you move on to others. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was super valuable. And then we have understanding color. And here we get an example of how you explore and get to know your colors. And that is something that you go deeper into in the course. Is there something that you can give us now that we can experiment and even start the process straight away if we want to?
Well, you can see in the chart on the top, you start with one of your colors as you go around your palette and mix that one color with the other colors and maybe different amounts, and then go to the second color and mix that with the other colors in different amounts. And you start learning how those colors are interacting with other colors. You may also make notes directly on that watercolor paper to help you remember. So you're learning as you go along, and it gives you a reference tool.
Yeah. And I've spoken to artists who just have found their love of their life pigments and they just stay with them for decades. So this is also where you can make wonderful new friends or just deepen with your paints.
That's so true. That is so true. Yeah, I do have some certain favorite colors, but I found over years, I've been teaching for 35, 40 years, high school, all levels, from little kids to adults. I love teaching adults mostly, but learning color theory with the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, a warm and a cool of each of those. And what does that mean? Warm and cool. And then how they mix together and how they mix with maybe one or two earth colors as well.
I love that.
Yeah. Keep it simple to start.
Absolutely. And then we move on to brushwork and textures. So how we can use our brushes and different watercolor techniques to create different textures. And these are effects that you then use. You can choose to use them to capture a certain sense, a certain mood, or a certain texture. Can you share a bit about these different exercises that you use when you do your own ballerina, so to speak?
When I'm still at the bar and I'm warming up, this is so true. It's playing around, just playing around. I've introduced some very simple ones. I start with basic brushwork, how to move how to move the brush around to create what you want. Do I use just the tip of the hairs? Do I press down more firmly? Do I turn it over? How do I load the brush? How do I get paint into that brush? So it's going to be the most effective way of creating a color brush mark or a texture that I want. And then we play with other textures, like what happens when I add salt, which I have to do it exactly the right time. What if I spray it with water and create droplets? Again, that has to be done at a certain step. Remember, we went through the gloss, sheen, matte, and dry. And if you try one technique at a certain stage, it might not work at all. But if you do it at another stage, it creates magic. And we can do scrapings, we can do resist. There's so many different things to do. And it's fun to play with these. So if you are looking at something you want to paint, like rocks or something, how do I do these rocks? I used three different techniques in doing this to create that texture, to make it feel like they're real rocks.
Thank you so much for that. And speaking of the image that you just shared, this is something that we create in module 5. And here we don't go straight into painting. First, we plan the image. Here we see that you get to know how to you learn how to edit the reference photo, how to crop it, change the colors, the values, adjust the ratio, or just explore and plan before painting. Can you share a bit about that process? Because it's also a big part of your way of teaching and painting.
Right. I was just holding this up because against the photo that was on your slide where they cropped it to be a square photo, you can see it's very different. And let me see if I can do this. Yeah. If I decide I want this painting to be this shape, it's going to be a different painting.
So true.
Right? But I like how these rocks in this place on the coast of Maine, there's a lighthouse near here, and they reach like fingers way out into the ocean because of the geological history of this area. So I wanted that long feeling of the rocks going out. So I chose something like this. And I'm looking around for another possibility where some paintings, you want them to be dramatic and you want a long vertical painting. So you need to decide, you take a photo, how am I going to crop the photo? Do I want it this way or this way? Do I want it square? And then how do I take that edited photo and then translate it into sketching? I always go through a sketching stage because that helps me solve a lot of the problems. And artists are problem solvers. That's what we're doing. We don't want to, my feeling is, I don't want to copy a photo. That's what photography is for. I'm also a photographer. So, I have that. What I want my paintings to do is to transform an image or something I've seen into a self-expressive creation. So what do I need to know and have in my toolbox to achieve that?
Thank you so much. And when we watch the image again, even though it's cropped, we can see that there are several different watercolor techniques that you use as well. So here is also where we begin to, you can see here there's some a card. What is
the
it?
Card paint, yeah.
So many different things that you go through in this part of the course. And let's move on to another. This is a bit similar to what we're going to paint today, I think. It's a beautiful seashore. And so this is a beach wave. What are some new aspects and what are some things that we learn from this kind of subject? And why have you chosen this?
Well, these are fun, but they're tricky. And the spray, capturing that sense of a spray, takes a couple different approaches. We kind of approach it in a negative way, in the sense that we're painting around the spray, or we approach it in a positive way. Like there's negative painting and positive painting. Negative paints the spaces in between. Positive is painting the object. And not saying, good or bad. It's just the way that we approach the painting. And to create a nice spray, we can employ a number of techniques to get that feeling that it's splashing and spraying. And then, there's lots there.
Yeah,
I did use a lot of techniques on that.
Yeah, it looks like so many different. Wonderful, yes. Thank you for that. And then the final part is putting it all together. And then you have chosen a very strong and a bit dramatic, both reference and also composition. And we can see that there is the sketching stage, and then there's the first layer that's a bit more subtle and light, and then I know that there's some more layers to it that we will take a look at later on. So yes. What is it that you that you walk us through here, and what can we learn from this kind of subject? And I really want to share, so I'm just going to do that. Here we have the finished piece, so there's so
Okay, good.
here.
Yeah. And you saw I had a great photo. I love to photograph as I'm traveling. And this one, I love the cliff, that dramatic cliff that was separate from where the lighthouse was behind. And those rocks, I just wanted that feeling. So you see here, as opposed to the one on the right, where these rocks are going up. And I want that dramatic feeling and that strength of that. Then I did the sketch after I kind of edited the photo. Then I did a sketch to check it out. Is this going to work? What are my lighter areas? What are my darker areas? So I do a tonal sketch, and that helps me plan it out. I realized later I wanted highlights on the rocks. Then I can transfer a simple drawing to the paper, the watercolor paper, start layering from light to dark, back to front, and create a number of different layers. This looks very complex, but when you get this module of this lighthouse and the cliffs, it's not really that complex, but we use our techniques to make it look much more exciting than you think. I mean, you could think I might have spent hours on this, but no, it's not that long. If you learn these techniques and you're familiar and comfortable with them, you can apply them quickly. And that's important. In watercolor, because it dries so fast, we usually have to work rather quickly. So we need to know where we're going, what we're going to do next. As I'm painting one thing in a painting, I'm looking back at something else that's in the process of drying, and I have to keep my eye on different areas to make sure one doesn't get too far ahead of me and back and forth. It's like being a great chef, you just have to, it's all in the timing.
Mhm. That's so true. And I just want to share, because I had a question in the chat, are we going to paint? And yes, all of the things that not all of the things, but several of the things that we're talking about right now, we will explore together in a few moments when we will be painting with Terrylynn's instructions. So you can prepare yourself for that excitement, because it's only a few minutes away. And these steps that we have walked through now, they're steps that you can learn from an instructor with over 35 years of experience in teaching watercolor that will help you master the basics. They're simple yet essential elements that will really catapult you so that you feel that you can just have fun and explore and take your art, especially your watercolor, to the next level. So the result of this course is that you gain a deeper understanding and experience that will help you paint more professionally and independently, and fill in the knowledge gaps and the know-how gaps, and correct some common mistakes with watercolor, and also see how to achieve that important balance between water and paint for that controlled yet expressive result that we can get using watercolor. That is one of the unique things about watercolor that is so wonderful. Also learn how to mix lovely colors from a limited palette, and understand how you can choose the techniques that you want to create the texture or the effect or the sensation that you are looking for each and every subject, and know how to choose what and why and when, and feel that freedom that opens up for you. And also learn how to make beautiful textures and interesting watercolor effects. And in a few minutes, we will paint this wonderful, beautiful wave together with Terrilynn. And before that, I want to share how you can join the course, because when you join the course right now, you will get a wonderful discount. First and foremost, here is what the things that are included. We have the 5 hours of 8 lessons, the 3 completed paintings, and we have 2 different plans. So the standard plans include all of the lessons, all of the materials that we have discussed. And if you choose the elite plan, which is an exclusive plan with only 30 places, we also have a certificate of completion, as well as individual written feedback on the 3 finished paintings, as well as on 1 creative task, where you will get individual feedback from Terrilynn Dubreuil within the first 75 days after you have chosen to join us. And this plan only has 30 spots because we want Terrilynn to be able to give really high quality feedback to each and everyone who joins this plan. And the individual written feedback is such a wonderful thing because it, well, the reason I chose when I went to courses, I felt that I need a motivation. I need some accountability. So for me, that is really, I would add that accountability and feeling that it matters. It matters that I do this and someone cares. Someone wants to see me succeed, and someone is actually going to spend time to give me the tools that I need to grow to the next level, which as an effect gives faster progress because personalized feedback targets your strengths and also your areas of improvement, and it will help you gain new insights to refine your techniques, your creativity, the things that you might have missed, and that will take you to the next step. And it also provides you with a tailored experience, which ensures guidance that is specific to your work and not just generalized to everyone. So it's a wonderful opportunity to learn even more deeply and in a more intimate way with Terrilynn. If you join the course today, you will also receive, if you join the Elite plan today, you will also receive the bonus video, which is a lesson with 3 steps to refine your painting, which has an additional completed painting. And there's also a discount during this launch. And we also have a bonus for all the plans. It's Artie coins. You will get 30 to 50 Artie coins on your purchase. And these are an internal virtual currency of Artefacto that you can use to exchange in Artist or our special store to get access to workshops and mini courses and all kinds of wonderful things. And here is the bonus lesson. What do we learn here, Terrilynn, for those who choose to join the Elite plan? You are now on mute, so we can't hear you.
You're right, thank you. This is a little different. It's getting away from the seashore and rocks and stuff, but taking some of these same approaches and applying it to a landscape and just kind of playing around and having fun, using the techniques.
Wonderful, thank you for sharing. And if you want to join, you can scroll down and click the join button below this video. And for those of you who join us during this live stream, you will get an additional 10% off. So this is an early bird discount that you get if you join us when we are still in this conversation live. So these are the prices that are for those of you who choose to join us right now. And you can find the button below the screen. And now it's time to get our hands, hopefully not our hands very dirty, but our brushes, get some paint on our brushes and explore these concepts together with you, Terrilynn. So I'm gonna hand it over to you because it's time to practice and paint.
Painting, it's the best thing, isn't it? It's where we have the most fun. So here we are. This is basically my setup this morning. I have a piece of paper ready to go. I've taped it down on a board because when the paper gets wet, it's going to buckle. I have my simple travel palette laid out. I've already pulled out some of the basic colors that I'm planning to use in this painting into my mixing area. I tried to be careful and not contaminate the paint in my wells with the paints that I'm mixing here. So you'll see I keep my paints as clean as I can. I have a very light sketching brush. I have my 2 tubs of water. They're very portable. These are great. And I already mentioned my spray bottles, my rough spray bottle and my fine spray bottle. Now, these came from a very inexpensive store, and I had to buy them and just try them out to see what kind of spray each one would give me. And that's how I discovered theirs. There's no real brand on those. It's just trying some out and seeing what's going to work. The next thing is my 2 main brushes here. These are, and I go over more detail in my course, but these are, I have a nice flat wash brush. I had an instructor way back in university that said, use the largest brush you can for as long as you can. So these are the ones I've become used to using. And you see when it's damp, if you dampen it in your water, and then off to the side, tap it. I'm going to try to tap it here with your hand like that. It should come to a nice, sharp, chiseled shape at the point. And the same with your round brush. You want the round brush, or I like to have the round brush, that has a fat belly. See how it's a little fatter right here, and comes to a very nice point at the tip. These two brushes will give you a lot of versatility and help you do almost anything you do. I like also on this wash brush, this has a beveled tip to it. I don't know if you can see very well. See how it's kind of beveled? And this I can use for scraping. It comes in very handy. If you don't have that, you can find almost any sort of tool to scrape with. All right, so that's kind of it. Getting started here, we're talking about kind of using this image. This is the photo I had. It's just waves splashing up on the rocks at the seashore. I've already decided I'm going to move elements around. I can do that. You know, I'm the artist. This is okay, but I want it to be a little different. So I brought the horizon down here. I'm going to do the spray. You can see the sparkle in the water behind it is brighter than the wave, but I don't want that in my painting. I want this spray to have the most attention, right? I want that. So I'm going to need contrast around that and have that be much brighter. So the first thing I do when I have my paper out is I adjusted the format. You can see this is a whole sheet of paper down to here, but I want this to be longer and thinner. So I just took a piece of dark masking tape so that you could see where it is. I wouldn't necessarily do this for myself, but I'm doing it for you so you can see. And then I start to lay out. I'm going to skip the sketching step at this point because we want to get into painting today. So I'm going to draw a horizon line. I'll just use anything that has a straight edge to it because the horizon in water needs to be horizontal always. Water, anything you're painting with water, it always finds its own level. So you need it to be horizontal across. So very light line there. And I'm not going to do a lot of sketching today because this is a very loose painting. I am thinking, generally speaking, I want kind of a triangle shape of this wave. It's going to swoop up here. I want it splashing here. And so I'm just very lightly doing a sketch. And then I'm going to have some rocks kind of cutting across the corner here. Here they go straight across. I'm going to have mine come in at a diagonal. Why is that? It's because I think it's more interesting. The diagonal is more interesting. And I'll tell you what I've done. I mean, recently, because, you know, coming on here, I practiced waves. Look how many I did. I did some small studies. Some came out better than others. I can use aspects of one over each. Even if I'm trying to do almost exactly the same thing each time, it'll come out differently. To me, that's the magic of watercolor. I don't want to control it totally. I want it to play back with me, and we're going to have some fun. So I really don't, you know, you can keep these nearby, can help you. I'm not going to, this was another one I practiced on. I like the way the rocks came out here. I noticed the smoother paper gives me more texture for these rocks. So I'm going to set that up there just as kind of a little guide. You can't see it. Here, you can see it better there. So first thing first, I'm going to take a soft sponge, or you can take your brush, and I'm just going to dampen the area around that spray. I'm dampening the paper. That's going to be the sky and the water. Just kind of going around it like that, and then kind of under it too. And the reason that's going to help absorb the paint a little better and hold it. I'm avoiding that center, and you can't see very well, sorry, because I'm avoiding that because I want that to stay white and clear. But if I hold this up, and you can do this on your own, I'm looking for it for you. See how the sheen is there? You can look in your light and see what areas are wet and what areas are dry. So this is at it's not my gloss stage, it's kind of at a sheen stage. I want it kind of a sheen. So I'm going to start with the sky and I'm going to work down into the water. And
We
I
have
need to
a question
keep,
regarding
yes.
what paper you're using. Is it hot pressed or cold pressed or rough that you have chosen?
This is a cold press paper.
Okay, thank you.
And each brand will be a little bit different. Again, we were talking brands earlier. Some cold press papers are a little rougher than others. Become familiar with the tools that you're using. So I'm going to start with the sky. It's in the distance, so I want a cooler blue. We were talking about warm and cool. Here's my yellows. I have a lemon yellow and a cadmium yellow, or something in those families. It doesn't have to be exactly those pigments, but I want a cool yellow and I want a warm yellow. See how this one's closer to red? And then here's my warm red and my cool red. And then I have a couple earth tones, burnt sienna, burnt umber. That's that neutral tint that I talked about. And here are my blues. I have a warm blue and a cool blue. And you can mix green so easily. I really don't use green much. I do have a sap green. It's one of my extra colors that I use just because it's quick. If I need green, I could just pick it up. It is so easy to mix that color with the yellow and the blue. You don't need to buy it, but it's good to have it right on hand. So I brought over some of this ultramarine blue into this area, and I'm going to mix. I've added a little bit, I have a hair there. I'm going to pick that up with a brush, hopefully. I added a little burnt sienna in this, so the blue is not blue, blue, blue. It's a little more neutral. I like that. And you want to make sure you pretty much have enough paint to cover this area. And then I'm just going to bring it in. Across from the edges. I can see my paper's gotten dry already just talking to you. So I'll bring in a little spray here to soften that edge. And I moved my paper towels. I always have a paper towel just to pick up anything wet. I'm using that to soften and bring that in. I want a little more color. Swoop it down. Now that area is quite damp right now, and I want a nice sharp line right along that horizon that I drew earlier. That horizon line that we drew. Now that needs to dry. So I am going to wet the water area, and I'm going to try to leave a little edge between the sky and the water so they don't blend too much. I'm just wetting it right now. You can see I still had a little blue in that brush. That's okay because now I can see it a little better. All right, and then it's very dry in here today. I can see my paint is drying very quickly. Now I start with some of my green and the water blue that I had decided to use. I'm going to pull a little over into this mixing area with that brown so it's not quite as green, if you know what I mean. I want it more neutralized. That hair is very frustrated. There we go. Okay. So with the edge of this brush, I can bring that right along that fine edge there and then bring it down into the water area. And I can kind of swish it a little bit. See the brush strokes I'm doing back and forth to make it look a little bit more like waves in the distance. Nice dark edge there. Waves coming down. I think I'm going to want to clean my brush I have 2 tubs of water. This is my cleaning water, the dirty water. Then I'll dry it on my sponge to the side. And then here on a paper towel, I can just check to see how much paint might still be in that brush. That's looking pretty good. I want to be more dramatic. While this is still wet, this is the time that I can add if I want more color. So I'm going to bring a little more blue into this. Especially, oh, look at that. And I'm just kind of sliding it in there and letting it fall down in. Turn your brush over, become very comfortable. If you tape your paper down on a board, you can move this board around. If something becomes too awkward for you, you can easily move your board around. Now I'm just taking a corner of that and dribbling in some, see how I just kind of touched here and there, and it's creating a little breakup area for that spray that's up top. I'm going to take some lighter. That little piece of hair does not want to go anywhere there. Now I'm going to this ultra blue because this is great. It's a very light, by making a color light is just by adding more water. And I'm going to bring it down into the lower area of the spray because the spray of the wave. I can use this to control how much water where. And in this area, it's shadows. Even though it's spray and it's light, there's going to be shadows in that spray. I want a little more over here. See how I'm using my hand to block that from getting up into what's above it. But I can add, and I know, you see, again, I'm thinking ahead. I know that this is the area of the wave that is casting a little shadow on itself. I'm going to take the rough spray now, try to concentrate that in there. It'll help move it around and block, make it flow a little more. All right. Now for the water in the distance. I like that softness in the distance. I don't know if I'm going to mess around with that. Now I want to bring a little more of this shape into the wave. A little brown, that's okay. There's brown in the water. Blend it in nicely. And then as we come closer here, I'm going to bring this up. And this is the area in the front part. I'll show you what we were doing here. Under the wave here. See that light blue on that foam area? And then under the wave, we can bring in some brighter color, stronger color. And you've noticed the colors are softer in the distance and a little cooler. That blue used back there is a cool blue, where the blue here is the cerulean blue. It's more of a warm blue. And I'm thinking the swoop of the wave coming up into it there. Play with it, just play. Yours does not have to look like mine, and it shouldn't. It should look like yours. Now I'm dancing the brush, just touching it, lightly dancing it along here. Leaving some white shining through because there's that foam that hits the wave after. I kind of step back, look at it. What might it need next? I would like a little more warmth in this. I think I'll add a little purple into this. This looks very wet right here. I'm getting a puddle right here because I can tilt it. And you can do this with yours, and this might mess my painting up. But as I tilt it, oh, see how wet some of those areas are? And I don't want it quite that wet. So I'll lightly blot it. And I don't blot, 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 blot. I'll blot once and I'll take a look at it. Is that going to work? That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. And I keep tilting my head back and forth so I can see where the water is and what it is doing. Do I need some more depth? Oh yeah, I had that purple in there for the shadowed areas. I want it irregular, a little more of that neutral tint, really darken just what's under that foam. I don't have enough paint on my brush. I also have a little piece of paper down here so I can check before I go in. Like, see how much paint you have on your brush. That looks like I need a little more. It looks a little better. So right now I'm working very wet in wet. This is my, I'm between a gloss and a sheen in this area, but it's creating for me that depth of color. And this is going to dry quite a bit lighter than it looks like right now. So I'm going to add some more depth into it. And again, I'm just dancing along with this. I'm just kind of seeing what the paint wants to do, what I want to do with it. And I'm still using my large brush because I can turn it sideways and you can get a very thin line with this. A little more depth over here. And while I'm going to let this dry a little bit. Actually, nope, I just changed my mind. As I'm looking at it, I want a little more depth back here. So now I need to go back to that colors that I was using in the distance. It was some green and some of this cool blue. And I want a little more of that in there to help pull. By adding that contrast, it's going to pop this wave toward us. We can't get any lighter than the white paper. So if we want the white to seem brighter, we have to add something a little more dark around it. Now, while that's kind of settling, and I want that to dry a little bit before I see what I'm going to do next, I am going to get my plastic wrap and I'm going to put in some rocks in the foreground. For the rocks, I have decided to use some deep blue, but it's mostly my burnt umber, deeper brown, and the neutral tint. And what the blue will do with that deep brown is just kind of neutralize it a little more. And I'm just going to put in, I'm going to think rocks. These are heavy, sharp rocks. And I'm making, as you watch me do this, I'm making different shapes. Some are strong, some are longer, some are shorter. And I'm trying to leave some white shining through here and there. And then what I can do with this is I'll take, while it's still quite wet, it's still in that gloss and sheen stage, I can put this plastic wrap on here and try to shape it to create natural rock looking shapes. I don't know if you can kind of see how it's actually creating these lines, and that's going to look like crevices in the rock. And I want to keep it off the wave. I don't want that on the wave. And then I have to leave that and let it dry. Not totally, we're not going to let it totally dry, but I want it to dry quite a bit. So while that's setting, I can go back and work on the wave part of the painting. I see some things happening here. It looks like a little secondary spray. Let's blot that. Let's see the textures that we can create with a paper towel. And we want it to be dry. If you take it and you blot, 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 it just removes all the paint. But if you make a textured shape, it's all kind of irregular here, and just blot it, hold it, and lift it, it creates a design kind of. I'm going to try some right here. Let's lift. See that cool texture that just created? I mean, if I tried to paint that by myself, it wouldn't look as natural. Here, it looks more natural. because it was somewhat out of my control. I'm going to take now my round brush. Make sure it's wet, evenly wet throughout. And that way it acts like a sponge and helps pick up paints. Now I can come in with some more rich color. I'm just kind of picking up that blue and I'm like, okay, I want a little more purpley. So I picked up some purple and then a little more green. So it kind of goes in with what's already happening in the wave. I'm touching this in areas that I can look in the light and see that it's in that sheen stage. It's wet, but not too wet. So then as I touch it, it'll do that blossoming out and create some interesting textures inside that. Touching the tip, make sure I move my hand out of the way so you can see. It's a little dry over here. This is more matte. A little more matte over here. But if I give it a little time, it will spread out. I step back, take a step back, kind of look at it from more of a distance. And you can see what the overall effect is. I'm going to remove some of the wetness of this. And then I'm going to drag my brush. It's almost a semi-dry brush now, so you can see the hairs will separate. And I can drag that through, just not everywhere, just here and there to create a little bit of variety. You don't want to do too much of a good thing. You want it to be interesting. This is where the wave color is peeking through the foam. This one I'm going to drag up and lift my brush as I go up so I get nice brush marks. Very simple. I'm going to get some more paint here, bring it along here. If you go to the ocean or the lake or a stream or anything and you watch water flow, you learn so much from it, like the movements of it. You go back to Leonardo da Vinci and he would study, he'd sit and study water flowing and then he'd make sketches of it as he was doing it and he learned how that worked. Okay, cleaning the brush, going into fresh, clean water, making sure it's cleaned on my paper towel. Yes, I want to soften some of these edges. So with the clean water, I am just touching here and there. And you can see, you can watch it. It's almost like magic. It pulls some of that paint up into itself. I want a little more shadow under this one. So I can touch the paint in there. And then with a clean water brush, I can touch it with just clean water and it will, too wet. So I just dried it on my paper towel and I can just, now it will bleed up in and become part of what's happening around it. That doesn't look quite like it's in the right spot. Yeah. You can also use this brush. It's damp, but I've dried it off. It's fairly clean. Let me see where. Maybe bring a highlight of water right here I just picked it up. I just dragged it along and picked up some of that paint. Try another here. Yeah, to add a little variety of what's happening there. Let's see what the rocks are doing. And I have totally lost track of how long I've been doing this. Oh, see, I've been watching up here. That looks okay. The sky's looking okay. I want this. That looks a little harsh right there, so I want to soften that edge. See, as you looking at one thing, you want to still kind of be half paying attention. It's like having multiple children. You got to keep your eye on all of them at the same time. So kind of keep your eye on what's going around in the painting, the other areas of the painting as you're working on a new one. I'm going to bring in some more blue just for some excitement. That wasn't very blue. Let's try again. Let me check my, there, now I'm, see how I checked down here? I said, now I've got enough paint in that. The first time I didn't. Just kind of add a little drama into the painting. Blend it in. Try a little blot there, see what happens. Playing back and forth. And every painting you do, I mean, you saw the variety that I had, trying the same wave over and over. You know, they're all going to look different, and that's great. No two are the same. Oh, here's one thing I wanted to show you. The beveled edge of my brush. I can drag this. Now, it can't be too dry. It's not going to work where it's too dry, and it's not going to work where it's too wet. Where it's too wet, let's see if I can find this. If it's too wet, that was perfect. So what that did there is it pushed the paint away and it created a light line beside a darker line. See if I can zoom in on that a little bit for you. I'll send the photo out later. But see that nice little line? If it were too wet and I tried to do that, then the paint would fall into that little trough that I just made if I push down into the paper. This way, it's pushing it out and away. I'm going to try it against this little edge here as well. And I'm doing irregular lines. And this looks like those tendrils that go with a wave. See, isn't that nice? Just something simple. Not too much of a good thing. If you do it 2 or 3 times, 3, 3, 4, I like to do things in odd numbers. So that's usually good. Now I'm going to pick up my plastic wrap. I start at the edge because I want to see how dry it is. If the paint moves too much as you're picking up the plastic wrap, then you need to let it dry a little bit more. But here, no, it seems to be holding a lot of the shapes. And you can see there's created a natural texture here from the plastic wrap and some natural lines. This again is an area where you need to learn what your paper is going to do with the plastic wrap and your different tools and things. Now I'm going to take my plastic card and I'm going to just kind of follow that natural line that the plastic created and just kind of drag it along. So I'm dragging the paint here. See how I just dragged that in? That picks up some paint on the edge of that card there. And then if I just drag it straight, I'm going to get a line. Where if I drag it this way, I'm going to get texture. Look at that really nice irregular texture. And I'm not even really trying it. It's just kind of happening. So I'm going to flip this, pull it this way a little bit. Same here. And I'm kind of doing it on this side because if the light's coming this way, that's where I want that. Couple lines, cracks in the rocks. Kind of randomly just going across at different directions. If it's too much paint, you just blot it, break it up a little bit. Looks more natural if it's broken up some. So without a lot of effort on our part, we're creating some pretty good looking little rocks. And the better you get at this, you know, the better it comes out. But I just wanted to give you some nice ideas, some different textures and things. Now I look back at the wave. Looking pretty good, I think. going to be anxious to see what some of you folks have done with it. I've lifted, I've moved around. What now if we wanted to create something a little more dramatic? I mean, this is not bad looking. This was where I can take a chance at this point and maybe ruin my painting. So if you're kind of happy with the painting the way you have it with yours, maybe just kind of leave it alone. I want a little more shadow in that area. Swooping it down off. So we see by adding contrast, it really pops that wave out. So what if we did that more with, I'm glad I checked my brush on my paper towel. That had a lot more paint in it than I thought it did. Now it's cleaner. I'm going to go with, again, some ultramarine blue. I mean, I could finish, this could be pretty much done as it is. Sometimes when it's totally dry, I will take my ink pen. This is a Pentel Staedtler hybrid Technica pen, and it's water soluble when it's fresh ink, but then it dries pretty steadily. I can add details in with this. I can do little birds flying off in the distance, but my paper's too wet right now. And if you're not sure how dry it is, take the back side of your finger, because the front side of our finger, usually we've touched our face or anything, and it tends to be grease on it, and that will leave a mark on it. Just lightly touch the back of your paper, and you can feel if it's cool, it still has water in it. It's still damp. I mean, touch your board and touch that. You can feel it still has some dampness in it. So I want to make the sky a little more dramatic. Maybe there's more of a storm coming in. So I'm going to pick up, I already have some dark mixed here. I might as well use this. So I'm grabbing that, bringing it up into that blue, checking my color. That's a little more dramatic, but not really dramatic. Okay, that's looking a little better. And now I've got this softness up here, so I'm going to have to try to keep that soft spray. So I'm thinking there's a number of ways of doing this. So this is where you want to think. I want to block that area that I want the wave to stay white, and kind of by putting this spray around it like this, when I come across with this big flat brush, it'll help pull in certain areas. You can see that that spray is not even and smooth. It's rather textured. Okay, so now let's come in with some of this around here. Bring it out. And following the edge of that horizon. Same from this direction. Kind of drop it in around there. And I can get my point, my round brush. The same color that I just put in that sky, I am now kind of dropping it in and around the spray part of the wave. And you can start to see that by making it more dramatic, it helps pop the wave out toward us by adding more dark in there. It's pretty wet right now, so you can see that's affecting what you see on mine because it's so wet. I'm going to blot in just a couple spots to make variety. Let's see how wet that is. And I think let's do the same with the water behind. I've got a lot of dark up here, but I am going to, now that we've got kind of a stormier sky, yeah, let's bring in some clouds over here. Whoop, that's okay. Little mistakes can be happy mistakes. You never know, it can turn into something a little different. Now with the water, I want to deepen the water. behind the wave. And I'm thinking, remember that I used warm blue up here, so I want to keep this water that's in the distance a little more in the cool family. So I'm going to use my ultramarine with some of that green, and I'm going to gray it down a bit with some of this blue brown I have in here. Irregular spray coming across, quite dramatic. So what we're doing is almost creating two different paintings on one painting. We've changed now the way that it was looking before. And I want to swoop here. This is not swooping well. I would turn the paper if I had, but when I'm doing a demo, it makes it different. I can't turn it because then you couldn't see it if it's turned. So see how that's going to swoop up. If I tilt the paper, see that dark blue? No, you can't see it. By tilting this paper, tilt it away from that, it'll help it bleed and blend into what's around it. See, now I don't have so much of a blob. It's just kind of generalized itself over there.
We have a lot of questions regarding what colors you have used. So are they granulating, and what did you mix in the sky versus in the water? Could you share a bit about what specific colors that you have used to create exactly these effects and the look that you got?
Yeah, I've been very limited, if you've been noticing. So for the sky, where a cool blue, I used, these are two ultramarine blues. This is French ultramarine, and that's an ultramarine blue. So those are my two blues in the sky, and I added a little bit of burnt umber in that, which grayed it down a little bit. It just made it a little more neutral, which is kind of in this area. See, that's that ultramarine blue mixed with the brown, and it creates a nice, more of a grayish, oh, you can't see it, sorry. Nice, more of a grayish color right here. That's a little more exaggerated. In the water distance back here, again, you can see my paper's drying, so it's wrinkling. I use cerulean blue in the water. That's that warm blue there with some sap green. This is sap green and cerulean blue. And then I also added in the shadow area, that was cerulean blue and the sap green, with a little bit of the burnt umber and the neutral tint to darken it. And then I did add a little of this magenta purple, a very cool kind of reddish color, because that, if you do something like that, it can add some excitement into it. And for the rocks, again, I just use my ultramarine blue, my burnt umber, and a little bit of the neutral tint. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 colors at the most. That's basically all we've used. I'm going to soften this. It's really too stark. So what I've done now is I have a damp, clean brush, and I'm just kind of working in I'm moving some of that paint around. It's kind of sitting on the surface, and I'm kind of moving it around. Did that answer that question, Hannah? Are there other questions?
Yeah, we have some questions. What happens if we use the paper that dried much faster than yours? Yeah. How do we approach that issue?
That's getting used to the paper. And if it's dried, are they getting probably dry marks on it or something? Oftentimes by having a misting spray bottle, you can just spray the air above it, not instead of onto the painting, just spray the air so you're humidifying the air around you. And that might help slow down the painting time.
Thank you so much for that. And we had a question about how to get neutral colors, both how to blend neutral colors and also what is neutral tint?
Neutral tint, it's a new one to me. A friend of mine who is just she's very much into pigments and how different companies make different pigments. The neutral tint is a natural earth color that is not black really, but it will help deepen the color. If you have something like Payne's gray, Payne's gray is often ivory black and ultramarine blue, and people don't understand that there's blue in that black, and you have to be careful. The neutral tint does not have any other color in it. It's just a very simple, natural dark. I don't like this back here, sorry. So to get a neutral out of, say if I'm starting with my ultramarine blue, and this is one of my favorite neutrals, that's why I have two tubs of ultramarine blue. There's my ultramarine blue. And to neutralize this, you mix it with something that's somewhat across somewhere in the complementary color on your color wheel. So the complement of blue is orange. So we need something in the orange family, which either your burnt sienna here, burnt sienna, or your burnt umber are all kind of in the orange family. And you mix those two together and it becomes a nice neutral. It takes it away from each of the pure hues and creates an in-between color.
So when you say neutral,
it's not
a grayish.
It's kind of gray. It's not really gray. It's grayed, but by using color. A gray is black and white. This is kind of creating a special gray, but using just color and not using black and white, which makes it more exciting. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And that's one of the things that's covered in the mixing color section of the module, because I talk about that, how to use color to neutralize or soften or gray down other colors.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
We have learned so much through this tutorial, and there were so many steps, and when you added that second layer before it had really dried, it was like, when you watch a movie and you're like, I wonder how it's gonna go for the main character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, it was almost a bit too exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that, Terrilynn. And we have a Q&A session coming up. I know there are still lots of questions that you have shared in the chat, and we have a Q&A part. We are going to cover the questions in a few minutes. Before that, we would love to invite you to join Terrilynn in the experience in the course Seashore Expedition in Watercolor. This is a course where you gain confidence in your techniques, from brush work to color balance and color mixing, as well as creating 3 artworks under the guidance of a seasoned instructor with 35 years of teaching experience. And our mission is to give a powerful learning experience that builds your skills, your insights, and the confidence that you need to express your artistic vision and create compelling watercolor art. And just to do that in this amazing dance and creativity and this beautiful space that Terrilynn creates together with you. So Seashore Expedition in Watercolor has 7 different modules. First and foremost, you will learn about materials, the essential supplies, what to choose and how to choose. And then you will begin to master the foundations of watercolor by learning how to control water and paint and finding how the surface, the wetness of the surface of your paper can create all the difference, and learning how that works for you in your paintings and on your paper. And then you will begin to deepen your knowledge about understanding colors as well as mixing colors. So if you during this workshop had lots of questions about what colors is Terrilynn using now, and how does it work when you mix opaque and transparent colors, those questions will be answered while you explore this together with Terrilynn in Module 3. Brushwork and textures is the focus of a Module 4, and in Module 5 you plan the image and paint this beautiful scene of the rocks and the water and the trees. And then we have Module 6, planning the composition as well as painting another splashing wave. And then in Module 7, you'll be putting it all together using lots of techniques and working in several layers, as well as using some texture effects to create the finished piece. And here are the final artworks in this course. They're a bit cropped, but you get the sense of the techniques that you will be using and learning and deepening your knowledge of. Exclusive for those of you who join us while we're still together in this live stream format, you will get an additional 10% discount that we only have during this live stream. So as we're still talking and doing this, so those that watch the replay will not have this additional 10% bonus. This is only for those of you who are here right now. So here are the different plans. We have standard plan with a regular launch discount, and then with our special discount for those of you who are here live right now, we have the standard plan that includes all of the content, so all of the learning materials, and with 24/7 access as well as lifetime access to the course. And then we have the elite plan, which on top of that also has both the bonus video. If you join us right now during this launch, we have the bonus video, 3 steps to refine your painting, as well as individual written feedback on the 3 finished paintings, as well as on the creative task. And this is where you get individualized feedback from Terrilynn herself within the first 75 days after you join us. And this only has 30 spots, and I don't know how many there are still left. So if you want to join this one, make sure to join us straight away. And learning online, you can paint at any convenient time that works for you. So this is so much easier to fit into your schedule than if you would have to visit Terrilynn or another master on their schedule. So you can do it from your phone whenever you want, or preferably from your computer if you want to have a bigger screen, of course. And you can access this 24/7, and the only thing you need is some kind of device and your login, password, internet, and you can just join us whenever you want to. And since there are some people who might be needing to purchase their first watercolor materials, or they might have other things happening right now, we are excited to offer lifetime access. And we don't know if we're going to do that in the future, that we only know that we're going to have lifetime access this launch round. We also have a wonderful community, so everyone that joins our courses gets to take part of a beautiful supported WhatsApp community where students support each other, and where so many people who have gotten some wonderful artistic friends, and they encourage each other, and it's a beautiful community where people support each other and just add to that momentum. And if you join the elite plan, you will also receive a certificate of completion once you have completed everything, so that you can share that, yes, I have studied with Terrilynn Dubreuil. And feedbacks on your works is also for the elite plan. And this is a way for you to both feel more inspired and also get that tailored guidance that you need to take the next step and grow as an artist. And we have a limited number of spots so that Terrilynn can give really high quality feedback and really focus on everyone who joins the elite plan. And we also have the bonus. We've already shared that that's where you will see how to enhance the composition and think through the different elements of the image, combine aerial and linear perspective to achieve a 3D effect, and learn how to add some details to finish your paintings. And You're welcome to join us right now if you want that additional discount, and you do so by clicking the join the course button, and you can choose which plan is the right fit for you. And then you can choose a payment method. It can be you can pay it with card or PayPal or Google Pay. And after that, you will receive an email with access to the course so you can get started straight away. And we also have a guarantee. So if within a couple of lessons, within a couple of weeks, you realize it's not what is going to take you to the next level, then just write us an email and you will get your money back. So the button is below the screen, and we would love to see you in the course. And here are some frequently asked questions. Who is this course suitable for? And I'm going to hand that over to you, Terrilynn.
I think basically it is great for absolute beginners, people who haven't really worked into it yet, because you can learn all of these. It's like learning the ABCs before you start to go write poetry. But anybody who's advanced or advanced beginner or intermediate, this is great for filling in some of those gaps you may have missed when you started out, some of those informational gaps and technique gaps.
Thank you for that. And this is a pre-recorded course, so you can get started straight away and you can join us, and the lessons are pre-recorded. And the streaming, if you had any issue with the streaming during this live stream, that will not be the case here, because here it is like watching a video on YouTube or on Disney Plus, or I don't want to market anything else, but it's gonna load and you can watch it, and there will be no streaming issues. And the materials will be very basic, and you can also always expand afterwards, and the course starts straight away. And if you have any further questions, you can email us at info@artefaktoschool.online. And you are welcome to join us by clicking the join the course button below this video. And now it's time for some questions, and I have saved some questions throughout the workshop. And then if you have some questions that you want to get answered, please write that in the chat. Oh, warmest welcome to Monique, who just joined. I really need some basics to help me along my journey. Wonderful. And Louise writes, thank you so much, Terrilynn. You're a great teacher, breaking down every step in a very clear way, easy to understand and follow. Happy to hear that. And Marianne, you will get an email with information. Oh, Marcia is also so excited. We are excited for you, Marcia. Okay, let me see what questions we have. First and foremost, do you usually turn your reference to black and white? Because the reference we had now was not very much color. Is that something that you do regularly to see the values?
I do. If I'm using one of my photos, which I use my photos, because once you start entering into art competitions, if you get to that point, see Constantine for that, right? Constantine has a new course for that. But you want to use your own references. I will, if I'm working from a photo, turn it to black and white so I can see the values. I can invent color. I can create any color scheme I want if I know what the values are. So that's what I do. I take a photo, check it out, turn it to black and white, and I'll do a sketch from that. What I prefer even better is just to draw a sketch on location and work out all those things ahead of time. That way, my paintings come out more expressive, more free than if I'm looking at a photo that has everything spelled out for me and try to copy it, because it becomes a little more stilted, a little more stiff. And I want to be more expressive in my own personal artwork. So that's why I loosen up. And eventually I'll start with a photo, and about a third of the way into the painting, I'll just put the photo away. It got me going. It's like my start, but it doesn't keep me going.
Thank you for that. And now we have a question regarding your painting process. How did you make the soft crest of the wave? Could you explain that in a word, if it went a bit too quickly and we had a hard time grasping what you did to make that soft?
Right. I left this light area dry, and I had to, as you notice, I covered and then I used the spray bottle around it to create droplets there. So when I brought the brush in, it would pick up on some of those droplets and add a little loose texture. Oh, I'm sorry, my hand's in the way. It added that loose texture around the foam. This is kind of an example. This is not the best example, but I hope that helps. Just trying to figure out when to add water and when to add paint, when to blot some of the softer areas. Remember, I took a paper towel and I kind of just gently blotted it, but don't blot, 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 because what that will do is pick up all the color. And you just want it to pick up a couple little textures. Does that explain?
Yes, that was very helpful. Okay. Question from Janet. Beginners can do this, question mark. Would you say that beginners can join?
I would think so. I mean, as you saw my approach, it was pretty straight ahead, and you just play with it. Just keep playing with it. You'll be surprised how easy some of the things are. A couple of my demos, as I said earlier, in the modules, the paintings that I've done look complex, but they're really not. Look at this area right here where the rocks are. It looks pretty intricate and like there's a lot going on here. But you saw what I did. I lay in two colors, the brown and the blue, put them in at different things. I put the plastic on, took that off, and then I took the credit card. So I didn't do a lot of hand painting down here. I let the tools do most of the work for me. Beginners can do that. You play with it a little bit and you find out what works for you.
Thank you so much for that. We had a question from Lydia. Please explain the difference between the standard and the elite plan. And the difference is that the standard plan has all of the content, and the elite plan has on top of that also written feedback on your artwork, so that you get that feedback, so you know how you can, what would you say? You know more about the feedback than I do, Terrilynn. So what is feedback?
Well, the feedback is, I mean, they can follow the standard, I think, is following the video and painting along. The feedback, you then take a picture of what you have done. You send it you post it on the Artefacto page with your comments. I tried doing this. This didn't really work for me. I'm really happy with such and such. And then I will look at it and respond, because I've seen thousands and thousands of paintings, and I can give you ideas of how to make your next painting better, how to change something that maybe you had a problem with. And I really love encouraging you when something comes out really great.
Ooh, wonderful. Thank you for explaining what that is. And also the Elite Plan has a bonus lesson as an additional thing during this launch. So right during this launch, there is also a bonus lesson included. So that's the difference. We have lots of people joining us. A warmest congratulations to all of you. Super exciting. And we have lots of thank yous in the chat as well. Thank you for those thank yous. And we have already spoken about the color choices. And Dinah has just bought the Elite Plan. Excited. So happy for you. Okay, wonderful. And Jackie writes that Terrilynn gives great feedback. Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
And then
I've come to know a lot of these people through critiquing and, doing the curating for other artists. And there's a few that I've heard their names and I'm like, I know that person. So if you're on Artefacto, please put your picture up so I kind of know what you look like too. It helps.
That's so sweet. Okay, I'm going to ask you, because we had several questions about color, so I think that is something that many people are curious about. Could you share something about mixing colors? Because we had one comment who said that it's so important knowing which colors we mix so that we don't end up with a muddy result. What are your thoughts on muddy paint? What is even muddy, and how do we avoid it if we want to avoid it? What are your thoughts on that aspect?
Muddy is so, it's like mixing too many of the wrong colors together. So I have ultramarine blue here, and I've got some burnt sienna, and I'm mixing that in. And I go like, oh, okay, let's see what that color looks like. Kind of gray, right? So if I do this, and then I add some of this, and what if I add some of this, and then I add, and then it just becomes, I mean, They can be mud or they can be beautiful grays. It depends on what you're looking for. But if you want a beautiful neutral tone, I call it neutral because, again, it's not really gray. Gray is a mixture of black and white. So if I want to neutralize this blue, I find something in the complementary family, which is orange, because if you understand color theory, the triadic is yellow, blue, and red. And if you mix any two of those, you mix yellow and blue, you get green. It's the complement of that third primary color, red. So these two mixed together complement this one. So if I have blue, then I mix the yellow and red together, which is an orange. And I can add pure orange, or I can add something in the orange family. If you see this color right here, it's a dark orange. It's a rust color. So that would make a great color to neutralize that blue. And it's, I don't know, there's so many fascinating things. So here's the blue. Here's that burnt sienna or that rust color. Not very much of it, is there? There we go. And by mixing those together, I can get some really nice, nice neutral colors. If I add more of the burnt sienna than there is blue, it's going to be more on the warm side. Mud is usually happening when, so I'm sorry, back to this. I just mixed two colors together and I got two very distinct neutral colors, beautiful colors. Mud often happens when you mix too many colors together and you mix them too much. You have to remember that paint is particles of color. Here's a particle of blue and a particle of orange, and they're floating around in the water like this. And the more, when you put them down fresh, they can settle down as little flakes of mica and refract and reflect the color that makes it interesting. But if you play with it too much and you keep mushing and mushing and mushing and mushing with it, mixing it around, that flattens those flakes out so they become flat and more dull. So you want to mix your colors thoroughly, but quickly, and use them quickly.
Thank you.
Does that answer, Hannah? That's
almost like a bonus lesson. Thank you for the bonus lesson.
You're welcome.
Oh,
that was a great question.
So great. And you also answered more questions about the neutral, like that aspect. So yeah, it was perfect. We also have a question. Could you please clarify the different plans? So I'm going to show this. This is only if you're watching us live stream. These are the prices that are right now if you're watching live. If you're watching the replay, these are the ones that will be relevant to you. So with that in mind, these are the two different plans. And during this launch, we have the bonus of the 3 steps to refine your painting as a bonus to the elite plan. In the standard plan, we have the lesson, so the actual course content, and everything is pre-recorded. So this is a pre-recorded course entirely. It's also a lifetime access course, at least this launch. And in the elite plan, on top of the actual course content, we also have the certificate of completion once you have completed it, so that you can share that, yes, I have learned personally from Terrilynn Dubreuil. And we also have individual written feedback that Terrilynn has shared, that you get to write your struggles and what you want to improve, and she can give you specialized, tailored feedback on your finished artworks. So we also have a bonus of Articoins, which is a virtual currency that you can use to exchange for for additional learning experiences in Artie Store, which is Artefacto's special store. So, and this is time limited. The launch is happening right now. So warmest welcome to everyone who has joined us. And I think we have answered lots of questions. Let me see if I can find another one that we haven't. I do remember that I took a photo here. So let me see what that was.
Okay.
Did you wet the paper on the back first? Is that something that you sometimes do? And did you do it this time around?
Oh, good question. I often do. I did not happen to do that today.
Mm.
When I'm painting for myself and I'm focused on it just me, I move differently than when I'm doing a demo. A demo, I basically kind of need to work quickly so you can learn and get ideas for your own painting. I do not consider what I did today a fine finished painting, but it was with the intent that you could go through some of these processes and perfect them yourself as well.
So that is something that you definitely do, but you didn't do it today. So we can do
That's
that.
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, about the water on the back. Often I do. Yes, I used
Thank
to
you.
sometimes just dunk my paper right in to water, but you get to tape it down because if you do that, it needs to be fastened at all the edges because it's usually cotton fiber. It will shrink, and when it shrinks, it'll wrinkle if you don't have it down tight and firmly.
Thank you for that. I saw one
Yeah.
more question, and that
Mm.
is how long was the feedback from Terrilynn? And that is you have 75 days. So what is that? 2.5 months. Um,
Around the end of the year, I think I
yeah.
figured out. Yeah.
Okay. So 5 days, and that is so that Terrilynn can schedule aside time during that space to be there for everyone who joins the Elite Plan. I hope that there are still spots available for the Elite Plan. And if you want to join with the discount, make sure to jump on now because we will wrap up now. I think we have actually answered the questions that I have registered. And I would just like to ask you, Terrilynn, to share what are your thoughts to someone who is painting with watercolor, sometimes loving it, sometimes being frustrated and wanting to get to that next step or find more looseness. We had lots of people who wrote in that their goal for today was to find a fresh approach, looseness, or confidence. So all in all, what would you say to someone who is in this phase of
This phase, yeah. Looseness, it comes with practice and stuff. If you notice, the only line I really put on my painting was that horizon line because her water finds its own level. It has to stay horizontal on your paper. Otherwise, I was just kind of playing around with, oh, how does this wave feel? And I wasn't trying to recreate a wave, but the feeling of a wave. And as I showed you earlier, I mean, how many have I played around with? Kind of over and over in many different ways, in many aspects, and just have fun with it. To be loose, relax. Another trick is don't hold your brush like it's a pencil, like this. You want to be looser, you need to move back and allow the brush to do its own dancing on your paper.
Thank you so much. That was also like a very short mini lesson, additional mini
Little
lesson.
mini lesson.
So thank you so much, Terrilynn, for sharing so much in this session. We learned about some foundational techniques. We learned about materials, color mixing, different techniques of how to achieve textures, and also the process of building up this beautiful watercolor painted that you walked us through. I love the dance, right, Francesca? And Lydia, you post the pictures on the platform itself, so that's very easy. When you join the course, you simply just post it underneath, so below the lesson. It's very straightforward. It's very it's tailored to be easy. And also, thank you everyone who joined us to create this experience of being people from all around the globe in just supporting each other and experiencing and exploring the beauty of watercolor together. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, Terrilynn, for sharing everything that you shared with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Hannah. You've been wonderful.
You too. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of